Jinx is supposed to be a female James Bond. And that's why I'm going on and on about this, because it bugs the shit out of me that it's another shallow, surface level understanding of James Bond. That he's just a guy in a suit running around banging chicks. What would have been interesting and would have communicated that Jinx is the female equivalent of James Bond would have been for her to use him to accomplish her mission, not just for sex. As we've talked about, Bond nauseum, Bond is all about mission over pussy.
Discipline 007.
With some exceptions. So imagine this. Jinx has her run-in with Bond after having scoped out the island during her swim. She's determined that the only way to get onto that island is as a clinic patient. So they have their same flirtatious scene and Bond invites her to a drink later. She says maybe. However, during their encounter, she and Bond both observe the dickhead guy receiving his clinic papers. They both want those papers, unaware that the other does as well. When Bond goes to confront dickhead guy, Jinx is there too, but she's too late and watches from the shadows as Bond gets the papers for himself. Knowing what she has to do, she goes to find Bond at the bar and they drink a few Cayman Jacks. She easily gets the super horny, scorpion venom-filled 14-month-long involuntary celibate torture victim James Bond to let his guard down.
Cayman Jacks, baby.
Yeah.
We'll get you every time.
The next day, Bond wakes up and she's gone, along with his clinic papers. He looks out the window to see her boarding the boat to the island, putting together his folly. Meanwhile, we follow Jinx on this first mission that we as an audience will ever follow her on, since she's supposed to get her own spin-off and all that. She successfully kills the doctor and cripples the clinic. Great. She's a hero. We like her now. We want to see her spin-off. However, Zhao wasn't there, but she found some clue as to where he might be. Bond, being wise to her game now, follows her, eventually catching up to her wherever the Zhao clue led and convinces her to team up. Examples of this in the past were so much better than what we got here. Anya blowing smoke in Bond's face and stealing the microfilm. Hot tub chick getting naked and stealing the Max Zorin tape. Wei Lin handcuffing Bond to the shower.
I work alone.
All reflecting Bond's mission over pussy, or in this case, mission over dick mentality. All of this would have painted a picture about who Jinx is as a character, even if it's no deeper than her just being female action person for now. Maybe we get hints of a backstory and save the rest for her spin-off. Instead, we get lines like,
Born on Friday the 13th.
just empty filler dialogue. And I'm sorry, progressives, but Jinx banging Bond right away will never be interesting because whether you like it or not, there's no challenge in that. If that's what you want, go watch porn. It will always be more engaging, admirable, and heroic for a man to win the hand of a woman because he's slayed a dragon. Because we all know that women don't need to work to get laid, but men sure as hell do. And to land a Bond girl, you gotta be more than just a pretty face. You have to do stuff, you know, like save the world. Conversely, what does a Bond girl have to do to pique Bond's interest? She just has to walk out of the ocean in a bikini. We just have this, I'm a badass. That's my character, is I'm a badass. And she's not a badass. She's actually really fucking lame. So far, we have 3 comparable sexy female foreign agents whose sole motivation is a mission. Dr. Goodhead, Wei Lin, and now Jinx. Single-dimensional characters whose sole motivation is the completion of a mission with 0 personal attachments to that mission, other than their countries / the world might perish, which works perfectly fine within the confines of the big dumb action movies of Moonraker and Tomorrow Never Dies. But as I've already pointed out, Die Another Day is not a big dumb action movie. Yes, it has some of those elements, but underneath that stuff is a very compelling personal stakes story for James Bond himself. It needed a Bond girl counterpart that explored those elements and complemented them in her own way. So imagine this. Jinx is the top new American agent within the NSA or whatever other 3-letter agency. She's essentially a freshman out to prove herself, and this is where she's just like Bond was back when he started out. Well, guess who else is out to prove himself? Bond, who is the opposite of a freshman. He's basically a senior that has been forced into retirement. Both of them are trying to complete the same mission for the same personal goal. Jinx as the freshman who wants to prove her capability, and Bond as the senior who needs to re-establish his capability. But Bond, the old man, inadvertently sabotages her, pissing her off to no end. This is where it's very important that they don't just immediately jump into bed, because literally blowing that load too soon is like skipping the foreplay of a first and second act and going right to the climax. It just doesn't make for an interesting story because it immediately deflates the tension that would naturally grow between these two competing parties. So now Bond has ruined her chances of successfully completing the mission that will essentially secure her own 00 type status within the spy world. Bond is still a rogue agent, and Jinx has been taken off of this mission and might very well end up just at a desk job or something. And he uses this opportunity in order to bridge the gap between them, bringing her onto his team. Bond, who we've known for 20 movies now and is currently in a movie the producers wanted to act as a celebration of Bond, starts going down memory lane. He begins telling Jinx about his first missions and how they affected him, changed him, and how she reminds him of himself when he was just starting out. Perhaps she begins to undermine him, telling him he's gotten soft, essentially responding to Bond in the exact way that young Bond would have. In the end, though, she accepts Bond's invitation to team up so that both of them can get their mojo back. And now they together have a vested interest in completing the mission by finally working together so that both of them can regain their honor, establish their rank, and then and only then go have super duper frisky sexy times. Something like this would have characterized Jinx in a way that would facilitate her own movie franchise, because suddenly she would be a female version of Bond. Instead, what we get is a completely superficial understanding of James Bond as just a guy in a suit that runs around shooting people.